Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wasalam ala rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. So today we're continuing with the Amthal al-Quran, the parables of the Quran. Today we're taking a look at Surah Al-Kahf, which is Surah 18, ayah number 32, in which Allah Ta'ala says, بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلَ الرَّجُلَيْنِ جَعَلْنَا لِأَحَدِهِمَا جَنَّتَيْنِ مِنْ أَعْنَابٍ وَحَفَفْنَاهُمَا بِنَخْلٍ وَجَعَلْنَا بَيْنَهُمَا زَرْعًا. And we present to them an example of two men. We granted one of them 2 gardens of grapevines, and we bordered them with palm trees and placed between them fields of crops. So subhanAllah, this guy is doing very, very well for himself. 2 gardens of grapevines, border them up with nothing but palm trees, so that they are protected. The wind can't destroy them, or is unlikely to destroy them, because they have that calm on the inside, right? Obviously, when you're surrounded by trees, it creates a better environment on the inside. The elements will destroy them much less, or have less of an effect. And placed between them these fields, these crops, and the word zar'a is the masdar, implying what? That they produce constantly. This is the implication here, that it's not just a farm that sometimes produces, and some sections are, let's say, barren. No, the whole thing is producing crops and fields and is beneficial. So subhanAllah, this story goes from ayah number 32 all the way to 44. And I don't think I'm going to be covering all those 13 verses today. I'm just going to give a small few points from this story that I think are essential, so that we can cover the basics. But inshallah, one day, hopefully, if we cover the whole surah, we'll go into depth of study of this whole section. What we just want to focus on today is the fact that, subhanAllah, this individual, he has these 2 gardens. He's very much blessed with a variety of types. And then you might ask yourself, why is it the case that it's mentioned 2? Well, obviously, if having a backup is always more, it gives you more confidence than just having one single one. The fact that it's also surrounded by, you could say, this natural barrier, which is also producing dates, and then in addition to that, you have, subhanAllah, all these 2 zar'a, these farms, these crops. SubhanAllah, this guy is doing extremely well. So this is an example of somebody who is making so much money. And then Allah says, كلتا الجنتين آتت أكلها ولم تظلم منه شيئا وفجرنا خلالهما نهرا. Each of the 2 gardens produced its fruits. And what's interesting is it's not technically the word fruit. Ukulaha means it's edibles. It means something that is edible. It's food. Because obviously, if Allah said both gardens are producing fruit, you might say, well, some fruits are edible and others may, be rotten or have, worms in it, or whatever, maybe even misshapen and nobody wants to buy it. Nobody's interested in that particular awkward looking fruit, whatever the case is. But Allah doesn't say just that it's producing fruits. It's ukul. It's producing food. That means all of it is edible. This guy has the best crops, essentially, that Allah Ta'ala blessed him so much that everything that's being produced in it is in perfect shape and is not rotten and does not have any bugs in it, and it's just, this guy's making tons of cash. وَلَمْ تَظْلِمْ مِنْهُ شَيْئًا. And none of it is, you could say, it's translated as, and it did not fall short thereof in anything. In other words, even his workers aren't grabbing something. It's not like, squirrels or rabbits or something are coming to this farm and eating and taking from it. Nothing is taking away from the production here. وَفَجَّرْنَا خِلَالَهُمَا نَهْرًا. And we caused to gush forth within them a river. So, subhanAllah, the fact that this has a river right gushing through the center of it implies what? That it has a constant water supply, and there's absolutely no reason for this guy to fear that it's going to ever be undone. So this guy's really looking at his business. He's looking at all of his workers. Everybody's doing great. Nobody's looking to overthrow the boss or start some sort of competitive rivalry or undercut his profits. So you can imagine this guy is becoming extremely proud and thinking basically he's invincible. وَكَانَ لَهُ ثَمَرٌ فَقَالَ لِصَاحِبِهِ وَهُوَ يُحَاوِرُهُ أَنَا أَكْثَرُ مِنْكَ مَالًا وَأَعَزُّ نَفَرًا. And he had fruit, so he said to his companion while he was conversing with him, I am greater than you in wealth and mightier in numbers of men. So what does this imply? This implies that as he's looking at his great crops, as he's enjoying his wealth, and he's with his buddy who perhaps, let's say, they grew up together, they've known each other for a long time, and it's like, we should have been the same, we should have been comparable, and yet I have excelled you so much. Now, he doesn't just straight up tell him, I'm better than you. Allah says, وَهُوَ يُحَاوِرُهُ, which means while he was conversing. And this is the reality. People typically don't come out and say, hey, by the way, I'm better than you. or I'm making more money than you. By the way, I'm richer than you. People are more subtle than that. They'll say things like, hey, so how's the business going? Yeah, you still struggling? Yeah, you still, I don't know, trying to struggle to keep even 3 employees, on the payroll. Yeah, I hear where you're coming from, man. And how's the house? Still under repairs? And yeah, still living in that little hut of yours? Oh, that's too bad. Hopefully things will pick up one day. Yeah, me, I'm already buying my third or fourth house and things are doing great. And, business is booming. I got 100 guys working for me, but, no big deal. And so people have this method of, as they're conversing with you, they're just slowly injecting the fact that, yeah, I'm better than you and I can do better than you and I'm the best. And it's very sad when you watch someone in such a pathetic way, unfortunately, feel the need to put others down in order to make themselves feel aggrandized and bigger and better. This is an unfortunate reality, but the fact of the matter is people do it all the time. Kids do it in a less subtle method. Kids will just say, haha, I have this and you don't, right? And try to make others jealous. But that quality doesn't go away even after childhood. You find that even as people grow up and become adults, they won't say it in those words, but they will say, oh yeah, oh, is that your car? Oh yeah, well, I'm going to be driving this car over here, Yeah, I got the fancy this, that, or the other, and they'll just subtly inject it into the conversation. So subhanAllah, this nasty quality we're seeing is taking place here. And so what is the result? He makes his little comment, he's disrespectful, and then Allah says, وَدَخَلَ جَنَّتَهُ وَهُوَ ظَالِمٌ لِنَفْسِهِ قَالَ مَا أَظُنُّ أَن تَبِيدَ هَذِهِ أَبَدًا. And he entered his garden while he was being unjust. Now, Allah doesn't mention that he was unjust to his workers, he wasn't being abusive towards his garden, nothing like that. Rather, it seems to be emphasizing that his oppression, his zulm, his injustice, his wrongdoing was entirely internal. The fact that he had allowed this wealth and this success to get to his head and start transforming his mentality, this was the problem. And then he finally admits it and declares what? مَا أَظُنُّ أَن تَبِيدَ هَذِهِ أَبَدًا. He said, I do not think that this will perish ever. So now he's starting to have this concept of immortalizing his work. My name will go down in history as the greatest producer, manufacturer, I don't know, whatever. My company the name will be known forever. My kids and great-grandkids and great-great-grandkids will always be known by having all this. Why? Because I finally have done it. And this concept of me, ananiya, this ego, we know that Allah Ta'ala mentions that Qarun had this ego when he said, قَالَ إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ عِنْدِي. He said, I was only given it, all this wealth that I have, because of the knowledge that I have, because of my special knowledge and how awesome I am as an individual. This is what is dangerous, when you allow your success to get to your head. And then he says what? وَمَا أَظُنُّ السَّاعَةَ قَائِمَةً وَلَئِن رُدِدْتُ إِلَىٰ رَبِّي لَأَجِدَنَّ خَيْرًا مِنْهَا مُنْقَلَبًا. And I do not think that the hour will occur. This idea of Judgment Day, I don't know if I believe this stuff anymore. And even if I should be brought back to my Lord, I will surely find better than this as a return. This is really fascinating. The question we have to ask ourselves is it the case that this guy was always a disbeliever, or did he start to disbelieve? Well, if this guy was always a disbeliever, he wouldn't feel the need to now declare it, because he's always been someone who just never believed in God or afterlife or anything like this. Rather, it seems to be the case that now this is becoming his new worldview. He's starting to say, yeah, business is good, and I don't really know if I believe in this stuff anymore. This whole idea of we have to pray or fast or be charitable. Do we really know if there's a judgment day? And even if there is one, I think I'll be fine. I don't think it's really that important that we have to focus on trying to be a good Muslim and all this stuff. I mean, yeah, maybe it's true. Maybe there is an afterlife. If it is, I think I'll be fine. The real, wallahu alam, it seems the clear evidence that he wasn't a disbeliever and that he was only becoming one is in ayah number 37, where his friend, his sahib, he says, أَكَفَرْتَ بِالَّذِي خَلَقَكَ. Have you disbelieved? So, wallahu alam, it seems to me, and Allah knows best, that there's a level of shock here. If the guy was always a disbeliever, there's no reason to be surprised. The fact that he's surprised goes to show that he used to be a believer. But now, because he's becoming more and more materialistic, starting to doubt the concept of an afterlife, he's slowly but surely moving away. And unfortunately, we see this. I know people that I grew up with that, they were praying alongside next to me, going to halaqat and being concerned about memorizing more Quran and things like this. And slowly but surely, they become more and more engrossed in their materialism. And slowly but surely, you find that there's no emphasis on Islam whatsoever. And then instead of feeling bad about it, they might have felt bad about it for the first portion of time, but eventually, slowly but surely, they start to say, I don't even know if I really believe in this stuff anymore. Now, it's not like they learned anything It's not like they learned anything new. It's not like they read something that caused them doubts or something like this. They came across ayat of the Quran that didn't make sense. That wasn't the issue. The issue was they were sick and tired of feeling guilty all the time because they were just neglecting their Islam. So now they're like, well, maybe there is no Islam. SubhanAllah. Unfortunately, if you're going to doubt a religion, which I think it's fine. It happens. Sometimes you doubt a person has a crisis of faith. It's usually because they're actually learning about the faith and they come across something that causes them doubt, not just because they've been neglecting it and now all of a sudden I have doubt. That seems to be a very disingenuous way of going about this. But anyway, Allah knows best. So it seems that he used to believe in Judgment Day. He used to have gratitude and hope and fear in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but wealth changed him. He entered his garden and was overwhelmed by how great his business was running. That's mentioned in ayah number 35. And so he began to feel that his business was a source of blessings, so he began to consider the garden his God. In other words, something like that's lasting forever, like a deity. Since he cannot deny death, he essentially says, even if I die, everything will keep running as it is now, if not even better. He completely lost an essential element of Iman, which is what? Feeling detachment from this world. In order to be a mu'min, to be a believer, there has to be an element of recognizing that all this is going to go away, and I have to be able to let go of this dunya. By the way, this attitude is this attitude of saying, what? Why would Allah give me Jannah here if I wasn't going to get Jannah in the next life? This is a very prevalent attitude that people have. If I'm successful in this life, I'm definitely going to be successful in the next life. You can actually find this amongst the Protestants specifically. There's something called the prosperity gospel. The prosperity gospel is basically the type of Christians that say, like, all the success that you have in this life is an indication that you're going to be prosperous in the next life. Whereas we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually tells us that whether you're going through good times or hard times, the fact of the matter is that all of it is a test from Allah. As Allah says, فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانُ إِذَا مَا ابْتَلَاهُ رَبُّهُ فَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَّمَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَكْرَمَنِ. As for man, when his Lord tries him and tests him, and thus is generous to him and favors him, he says, my Lord has honored me. No, just because I've given you blessings doesn't mean that I'm honoring you. It means I'm testing you. Allah Ta'ala clarifies this in Surah Al-Fajr, ayah number 15. Furthermore, the Prophet says what? لو كانت الدنيا تعدل عند الله جناح بعوضة ما سقى كافرا منها شربة ماء. If the world was equal even to a mosquito's wing in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah ta'ala would not allow the disbeliever to even have a sip of water. I mean, this is why Fir'aun was so successful. It doesn't mean that Allah loves Fir'aun, obviously. It's all a test from Allah, and this world is meaningless. Just the same way you would smack a mosquito, let it fall to the floor, and you would never go and pick it up and say, oh, let me save the mosquito wing. You don't care about its wing. You don't care about any of the mosquito. You think it's all just, get it away from me. In that same way, Allah ta'ala is saying, this whole dunya doesn't even equate even to the wing of a mosquito. Furthermore, the Prophet says what? وَاللَّهِ مَا الدُّنْيَا فِي الْآخِرَةِ إِلَّا مِثْلُ مَا يَجْعَلُ أَحَدُكُمْ إِصْبَعَهُ هذه وأشار يحيى بالسبابة فِي الْيَمِّ فَلْيَنْظُرْ بِمَا يَرْجِعُ. That by Allah, this world is so insignificant compared to the hereafter that if one of you should dip his finger, and the reporter of this narration, he showed his forefinger, if you're going to put it in the ocean, take it out and see what sticks to your finger. In other words, obviously the tiny little percentage of a drop that is stuck to your finger, that compared to the entire ocean is essentially nothing. Yes. Now, what is the main point of all this? SubhanAllah. The main point that I think is very, very important that all of us remember is that some people subconsciously feel like religion is essentially for the hopeless. It's a hope for the hopeless. There are a lot of people that are religious. Why? Because they're like, look, broke people have religion because they have nothing in this life. So they comfort themselves with promises in the next life to make life bearable, right? A lot of people have this subtle attitude, you could say subconsciously. And we see the development of this man's thinking slowly move in that direction through the following ayat. In ayah number 34, the guy starts making money. He begins to realize he's richer than his old buddies that he used to see as his peers. Then in ayah number 35, becoming a success in this life is difficult enough, so thinking that you must become a whole other success elsewhere is daunting, right? Obviously, look, if I'm successful in this life, how am I supposed to be also awesome in some other future hypothetical realm? It's easier to delude yourself that the success you finally achieved will remain forever. Look, if I'm good here, I'm going to be good elsewhere. If it's lasting now, it's going to last forever. Plus, success can give you an ego. and an ego will convince you that you're entitled. So clearly that's what's going on with this guy. And in ayah number 36, the ego convinces him that he's above being judged by a higher power. I don't even think that there's going to be such a judgment day. Why? Because I'm the highest authority. There's nothing above me. But then again, he remains open-minded and he concedes that there could be theoretically a judgment day, but since he's now so awesome, it must undoubtedly continue. His awesomeness must continue in all circumstances. Why? Because I deserve it now. So if judgment day is all about justice, then justice is that I deserve it too. Subhanallah. Now what does his friend respond? قال له صاحبه وهو يحاوره أكفرت بالذي خلقك من تراب ثم من نطفة ثم سواك رجلا. And this ayah, subhanAllah, is just the beginning of his da'wah and just the beginning of this story. And unfortunately, we're going to have to keep it short because this is a very long story, but I think that this is a very, very good place to just focus. That he says to him while he's conversing with him. So again, he's not being harsh and just saying it straight up. Rather, this is during a conversation. He's subtly injecting it. He's trying to actually help his friend, which goes to show that he's a genuinely good friend. And he says what? Despite the fact that he was disrespectful to him, he seems to really want to save him and save his soul. And so he asks him, أَكَفَرْتَ بِالَّذِي خَلَقَكَ? Have you disbelieved in the one who created you, min turabin, from dirt? Trying to give him a reminder, you used to be nothing. You used to be from the dirt of this earth. Why are you developing this incredible ego? You came from the dirt and you're going to go back to it. Don't you recognize that the one who brought you out from this dirt, he can bring you back again for Judgment Day? Why would you doubt that there's a Judgment Day? Why would you have such an ego when we're all from mud? ثُمَّ مِن نُطْفَةٍ, then from a sperm drop. Is that something to be bragging about? The fact that you came from your father's, anyway, you get the point. It's not exactly something to, ثُمَّ سَوَّاكَ رَجُلًا, then he developed you and built you up into, and proportioned you as a man. So subhanAllah, he's giving him a sense of humility, but in addition to that, there's also something very important that I want to highlight, which is what? If you feel that you can only give da'wah to somebody who is poorer than you, but never wealthier than you, that's because you've internalized the idea that wealth places them above you, which just so happens to be the exact idea that you're trying to remove from them. Therefore, be like this believer who calls to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala despite having the lower socioeconomic status. This, I think, is a crucial point. So many Muslims in the West, they feel like, oh, I'll give da'wah to the guy who's homeless on the street, I'll give da'wah to the guy who is not as wealthy as me, but the moment somebody pulls up in a fancier car, I can't call that person to anything. Why? Because they're above me. Now, wait a second, your whole message, your whole belief system is what? That his wealth does not place him above anybody. And your poverty, let's say, if you have it, does not place you beneath anybody, because righteousness is not determined based on money. God giving you lots of money doesn't mean that he loves you. God giving you poverty does not mean that he hates you. It could be that these are all just tests from Allah. So subhanAllah, before you even think about da'wah, you have to ask yourself, have I internalized the very message that I'm trying to oppose? That, I think, is a very powerful lesson, and I think we need to remember this very much, that we don't just give da'wah to those who are from a socioeconomic perspective beneath us or equal to us, but even those above us, which genuinely shows that you know that it's the truth that is powerful, and money comes and goes. It doesn't mean all that much. Jazakallah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.